Hey nerds, it's Nathan, and you can call me one of the lost sons of the Emperor, because I just killed a fly mid-air. It was fucking awesome. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Fulgrim by Josh Reynolds. This is part of Project Absolute Zero, where I am trying to read through all my sequels and prequels to, actually get through them instead of just picking up a new book and going, ooh, shiny. All right, let's go.
Tall heels, black dress, breaking hearts.
First off, I would like to say, yes, another book down for Project Absolute Zero. Small hiccup. A very good friend of mine, I recently went to Queensland to go see, offered me a deal if I paid for the accommodation for when we went to go see a show together. He would hand me his Lehman Russ copy, which is another one of our Primarchs. I took him up on that deal so hard, because how could I not? They are stupid. These books are stupid expensive now, and it kind of worked in my favor. I went to Queensland on credit points, so my ticket was free. He paid for the show. I paid for the accommodation, and I got like $170, $200 book out of it. It was like win. But yeah, so I finished one book and then added another to the project. Because. But enough about me and my epic adventures. We're here to talk about Fulgrim. He is one of the Emperor's sons in the 40k universe. And he is in charge of the third legion, known as the Emperor's Children. Now, the Emperor's Children had a bit of a setback at their initial conception, where they had a type of gene mutation, which you really don't want in your legion of super soldiers. So, the legion went a very long time without their Primarch, and then they suffered horrific losses due to this gene mutation, and they were kind of used not as cannon fodder per se, but they were used by Horus and Fulgrim and even Lehman Russ, which is the book I got, in order to pad their own forces on certain war campaigns until Fulgrim is found. He is brought into the Legion and he is trying to rebuild it. Now, this story follows Fulgrim trying to bring a world into what they call compliance. Basically, they're trying to conquer them and bring them into the Imperium, the fold of the Empire. But compliance can go one of two ways. Either they give in, or they go to war. They don't want to be, under the Imperium. And a lot of the times, a lot of the parts of the Great Crusade, part of the Great Campaign, was just the Sons of the Emperor taking their legions of super soldiers and just ruining planets, right? This is about Fulgrim wanting to prove something to his brothers and to their legions, that he is ready, and that even though his legion is only 200 strong at the moment, roughly, which is really, really fucking shit. Some of them have tens of thousands, others have hundreds of thousands before the current laws were put in place, before the heresy. Essentially, he takes 6 of his finest, his right-hand man, and a character which they call their apothecary, which is kind of like their medic and genetic specialist. And he's trying to bring a planet into compliance with essentially 8 people total, right? And this so far has been one of the more interesting of the Primarch books, because we actually get to see what the Primarch is capable of. In a lot of the other books, they kind of talk about the effect that they have on their own super soldiers, how like the super soldiers are awe-inspiring to us, but then the Primarchs are awe-inspiring to the super soldiers, and it's kind of just this like glorified circle jerk sometimes. Whereas in this book in particular, there are actually parts where, like, there's an assassination attempt on the current government that is giving in to Fulgrim and wants to... Basically, they know they're losing power, so they're going to be a figurehead and allow the Imperium to take over. And there's an assassination attempt, and essentially, Fulgrim runs, like, across the city, climbs up an energy dome, and quite literally rips his way into an airship. And it just like that, we haven't had that before. We haven't had that display of power. We've been told about their power and their strength, but we've never been given a descriptive display, or at least I haven't with the books I've read so far. This was really nice. This was really, really good to see. This was engaging. This was really engaging, especially because it had these moments of superhuman feats, and then it helped you put it into perspective by giving you these moments of like real normalcy, like just political bullshit and backstabbing alongside what happens with war. And later on, there is like an actual like full-on military confrontation, and essentially to really stem parts of the enemy's losses and to just keep men that are loyal to the current government, he sends two of his soldiers, 2 out of the 6 he brought with him, to go through and slaughter an entire army barracks. And it's not that they did it like that, but they did it. And they said it was a battle. They said it was a challenge, and they enjoyed it. And then you see, like, that the others give them respect because they're like, nice, like 2 against like a good 400. Yeah, well done. That would have been a good time. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like 2 super soldiers against 200, 400 soldiers. Granted, they were caught off guard, but by the time you're slaughtering this lot, the rest of them can get ready. You know, it was wild. It was really, really, really well, really, really engaging. Something they've always said about the Primarch books is the fact that these beings are supposed to be perfect, and they're not. The authors are trying to describe them in such a way that they have this reverence of perfection, but they don't. And I think they've done a pretty good job so far. Josh doesn't do that. Mr. Reynolds doesn't do that. Mr. Reynolds basically just places them in the scene, allows them to do what they do, and then there's just moments of description where you see others' response to him, and that's how you see the difference. Not the other authors. They're describing the Primarchs and they're telling you. Reynolds is doing a very, very powerful but easy literature technique called show, don't tell. They're showing us the results of the actions and the interactions between characters and how they react to Fulgrim, and it shows us, the reader, how separate he is from them. Now, The thing with the Third Legion and Fulgrim himself is that he is kind of like the actual embodiment of perfection. So the others are described as perfect beings, but they're far from. Whereas Fulgrim, even amongst his brothers, describe him with that idea of perfection. Not that he is perfection, but he is as close as of an idea of an embodiment as you can get. He is the most beautiful of his brothers. He's actually the smallest. And these guys are like 8 to 10 feet tall. Some of them even taller. But he is the smallest. But he is considered the most beautiful. And his sword work is considered the best. He is considered one of the best swordsmen out of his brothers. You know, his legion focus on that too. The world he grew up on is a world of art and poetry, and he has this thing where he wants his sons to have that flourish, that style. And a lot of that, even when like those two I told you about just before were slaughtering dozens at a time, it spoke about how they moved like dancers. Imagine an 8-foot tall, jacked as fucked super soldier in power armor with a fucking space sword, essentially, is moving like a ballerina. They are moving like an athlete and a dancer as they cleave people in half, right? That's what Josh Reynolds is doing. Josh Reynolds, that's what their Legion is about. And Josh Reynolds actually gives us that imagery. He shows us the, I don't want to say the softness, but I think the grace of such warriors, where normally you look at all the other legions, it wants to talk about the strength and brutality of their warriors. And don't get me wrong, they are brutal and they can be malicious. They're super soldiers. They've been conditioned for battle. They've been mentally conditioned to want to battle. But one of them hums and sings a tune once he starts getting into the rhythm of battle, and he fights to that tune. And some of them laugh at him for it, and then some of his other brothers kind of really respect him that he can just throw all of himself into the moment, and they say he has the heart of a poet, which is a really weird thing to say considering he's literally going around sword in one hand and a big ass blaster in the other, and he's just murdering people. Essentially, like, it's war, it's murder. Yeah, I think this is my favorite book so far. I've always been very interested in the Emperor's Children, which is the Legion, and Fulgrim himself. Not that it means much to you if you are not a 40k fan, but before Fulgrim took over the Legion, the Emperor was always so impressed by the skill and their determination and the fact that they were always put in like the worst situations, or like I said, they were used as kind of padding to fill out forces on other people's campaigns. Oh, sorry, bit of heartburn. He gave them the right to wear his Imperial Aquila, which is the eagle, the double-headed eagle, and which is on Fulgrim's thing. If we hold that up there, whoop, see this big eagle from the breastplate here. Sorry, the shoulder pad, and then the breastplate and everything else. He has eagle Aquilas everywhere. It's whoop, where's my hand? There. It's on top of the rising sun of the Third Legion banner. Like, they make that their pride. The fact that they earned that the God Emperor of all mankind across the galaxy was like... And there are other legions that have their Primarchs and they're full and they're, intact. They're in one piece. And he was just like, you get it. You have pushed and you have completed more tasks in such shitty conditions better than anyone else, you have earned the right to wear my Aquila. And so they take that as a serious point of pride. And so this whole thing is just one giant test. It's a point to prove. Fulgrim wants to prove to his brothers that not only can he bring an entire planet into compliance without their help, but he can do it with just a handful of warriors. He is so set on this idea that it does get a little bit in his way, which brings up my next point as to why this is so far my favorite book and my favorite Primarch, I think. He actually has humility. He has a way of manipulating people, and he manipulates them by showing them honesty, showing them genuine respect, and showing that he himself can make mistakes. And that is the most interesting part of this, because none of the other ones can admit it. They're meant to be the son of the emperor, and they can't admit it. They can't admit that they make mistakes. They can't ever let their pride be tarnished. Their ego, they're so egomaniacal. It's so detrimental. And then Fulgrim is the complete opposite. He gives humans compliments. He doesn't stand there and go, yeah, okay, you did your job, you puny, weak piece of shit. Thanks. Like, I'm not going to praise you for doing the correct thing. Whereas Fulgrim understands, yes, I will give you the praise that you deserve because you managed to complete what I've asked of you. Whether I would find it simple or not is not the point. The point is I gave it to you. You are a human, and on both a social and genetic level, you are incredibly flawed. Comparatively. And so he gives praise where praise is due, and he gives... Yuck. Excuse me, I'm going to have to kill another bug. Humility, yes. And manipulation. Yeah, Fulgrim has this way, there's several points where his sons, his soldiers, kind of talk over the top of humans, or they belittle them a little bit, and then when he sort of sets something to them, like, oh yeah, how would you do it? And I would do this and this and this. And he's like, that's a really good idea. And they're like, oh, shit. The Primarch thinks I'm smart. And then, another son might be like, blah, 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 and he might, well, that won't work because A, B, and C, which is why his plan, this puny human, is better than yours. And then it's like, whoa, the son is like, I am so ashamed, seppuku. But the humans are like, holy shit, this guy, this demigod-like being just praised me. Whoa, what the fuck, And there's a part at the end of the book, so I'm not trying to give away any spoilers, or as little spoilers as possible. There's a part at the end of the book, essentially, where Fulgrim's human council is sort of talking through the steps of the events that have just taken place. And Fulgrim admits that he let this idea of proving himself get in the way of compliance, because he wanted to do things a certain way. He wanted to achieve a certain set of results. And ultimately, in the end, he was like, it went almost exactly as I planned. Almost exactly as I planned. But it could have gone better. I didn't have to do it that way. I chose to do it that way because of my pride. And his human council is like, the fuck did you just say? Most of the Primarchs, they would come down with their legions like, hey, welcome to the Imperium. We're going to have people come, and we're going to set you up, and we're going to restructure your entire government, your laws. Don't really like this about your culture, so we're just going to fuck that off real quick smart, because we don't like that about your culture. And you're going to become a huge cog in the Imperial machine. And they're like, no, I don't think so. And they're like, sorry? No, I don't think I will. That sounds awful. But it's for the betterment of all mankind, not just you, all mankind across all the galaxy. Yeah, nah, I'm pretty sure, like, we don't mind being allied with you, but we would like to keep our way of life. No. Boys, and then they just roll out the fucking tanks, you know? That's how they do it. And they, most of the time, once they've brought a planet into compliance, it's because they've crushed them. They've crushed their will. Most of the populace is gone. Most of the infrastructure is gone. And they're like, too fucking bad. Like, this is how it is. Whereas Fulgrim literally has tried to avoid that. He has tried to avoid as much death, as much destruction, as much, like, restructuring as much as possible. Their planet, their government, their planet definitely fucking needs it. But he's like, we will do it slowly. We will bring them under the banner first, and then we will show them a better way. And that is his whole thing. His whole thing throughout the book is we can show them a better way. But they don't want to know the better way because people in power don't want to lose that power, even though that power is so stupidly fragile. It's like their planet, one half of their planet was nuked and is useless, or at least a huge portion of their planet was nuked and is useless, and the other half lives in horrific poverty, and basically all the resources and wealth just go to like one central location. And he's like, it's not efficient. He's like, I can show you how to be in power, but also how to prosper your planet. If your planet prospers, you prosper. And they're like, nah. And he's like, all right, now I'm going to have to fucking slaughter you. I'm going to have to make myself the bad guy. And I'm going to piss you all off. And that's pretty much what he does. He pisses all the factions off. And he's like, then they join. He's like, excellent. Yes, you're a united front. But you're not. Because you all hate each other, and you're all still scrambling for power, but you act as a united front. And if you're one army, I can take you on as one army, and I can do this. And he kind of does. He's got a plan. He's a thinker, the old Fulgrim. I don't really have much more to say about this. Like all the Primarch books, they are very short. I think this is 200 odd pages, like most of them are. Let's have a look. Yeah, 219 pages. By the way, Josh Reynolds, this author, he's done a lot of other Warhammer books, and if they're as good as this, I would highly suggest picking them up. Yeah, he's done so many. Oh, shivers. Good. It's a short book, but it gets through the bulk of the story very quickly. I really love what Josh has done, where it's show, don't tell. He's showing us the genuine magnanimousness, if that's a word, of Fulgrim by placing him in ordinary situations and having him outperform, but also praise those around him who try. And then, you know, there's a handful of combat scenes with Fulgrim where you get to actually see the Primarch's power comparatively to a normal human being. And he literally bulldozes through like several things that like beings, humans or otherwise, should not be able to just plow through. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorite ones so far. It was the more intriguing of the books, because of how he wanted to, conquer the planet. It was more intriguing of the Primarchs for the fact that he openly, knows he has limits, even as a near perfect being, and that his respect and his humility can be honest, but also weaponized. And that the biggest takeaway for me personally was that he knows his brothers are just as fucked, if not 10 times more, but they will never admit fault. He says something along those lines. I don't remember quite what the wording is, but he says, my brother's biggest issues is that they never can admit to their own faults. And he turns to his which would be considered blasphemy, like a death penalty, like crime, if said by anybody else. Even like his legion, if it was said by them, fucking fuck you, disloyal. But then he turns to his human consort and he tells them, you were right. I definitely could have done it better. And it's just wild when you have someone who is that powerful and that smart. Like, the dude pretty much tricked a planet, like a whole planet, into pretty much doing what he wanted, almost step by step, right? And he's just like, yeah. He's like, I gotcha. But you're right, I probably could have done it better. That shows so much more humanity than any of his brothers combined. And that's what I think I love about Fulgrim the most. All his other brothers are trying to be set up here. That everyone is told that they're up here, and then, they're so far above that they couldn't possibly have this level, like a normal level of like humanity, of human emotion. But the fact is they do. They don't have any they have heaps of human emotion, but they don't have any humanity because they are put so high on a fucking pedestal. Whereas Fulgrim is put on that pedestal, but he tries to bring himself down. So that way, he won't be seen as much of a hypocrite. And then this idea of perfection is then amplified. Because it's like, oh, all the Primarchs are big and powerful and have superhuman intelligence and all this other stuff. But Fulgrim, oh my god, Fulgrim is loved. The others, people are in awe of them because they're transhuman, they're transcendent, they're demigods. But Fulgrim is loved even by the people he conquers. Because even though he didn't destroy this planet, but he destroyed the system, a lot of people are going to be mad at him. They're never going to like him. But he's already set it up. I'm taking a blood tithe for my legion. And now that your government is fucked, I'm going to institute my people to teach your people how to set it up properly. And then we're going to flourish. And the people who are going to benefit most are the majority. And the majority of those people are going to see Fulgrim as a savior. And that's the difference. All those other planets, the planets under like Potorabo and Fulgrim and that, they're going to see them as conquerors. Whether their planet flourishes, stays about the same, or plummets, they see them as conquerors. Whereas Fulgrim, even for the moment, is being shown like to the people as a tyrant. Later on, he will be considered a savior, which is wild. Check it out. Absolutely check it out. Honestly, I tell people all the time, get the ebooks. They're very, very cheap. Don't get the physical books. They're very, very expensive. They were a limited print run. It doesn't matter which one you start off with. Read the blurbs, see what maybe interests you the most, but there's a lot of Primarchs. There's quite a lot of Primarchs. But honestly, so far, I think this is my favorite one. I think he's the most interesting. I think Josh Reynolds has done an excellent job writing the story so that you get to see the capabilities of not like a demigod-like creature, yeah, I think they're great. I think you should really, really pick them up. As always, if you do buy a physical copy, I'm going to as I tell every time I hold one of these in my hands, the actual quality, the physical quality of these books is amazing. And I wish more books are made like this. I wish all books were made like this, I'm being honest. Printed hardcover, card stock, not just paper, but card stock. Look at that. Look how that just stands on its own. Fucking beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful books. Incredible stories. If you want to get into Warhammer, I absolutely... Let me try that again. I absolutely recommend that you do. These are banging books. There is a universe of lore. I think there's like 40 years worth of lore and books. And... there's 17 Primarchs, and they all have their legions, and then there's different stories about their legions across various parts of space. Then there's what they call their successor chapters, which is like the New Age, which is like the next generation of those legions. There's just endless stories, and I would highly recommend them to anybody who loves sci-fi, grimdark, space opera, military fiction, all that. Absolutely fucking fantastic.